It's 5 o'clock in Pirate Country, and it's time to get pumped up with the P-Man. Hit the door and hit the road. 94.3 The Game is going to get you home, and the P-Man's not holding back.
Yes! Yes! Pirates win! Pirates win!
Bring on the Patrick Johnson Show on 94.3 The Game.
Holy mackerel! Oh, my goodness!
The flagship station of the ECU Pirates.
All right, welcome in, everybody. Nice to have you along. Patrick Johnson Show here on 94.3 The Game, 94.3thegame.com, and the IBX Media app, also streaming on our video platforms here today. Thanks for being with us here, the midweek edition. Of course, the Game Eve edition. If we're talking Pirate football, we'll be on the air tomorrow at 3 with our Anson Belt and Buckle Pirate Game Day Countdown presented by Orthopedics East. And looking forward to bringing that to you tomorrow with Philip the Ref Pilkington. Speaking of the ref, he is in the house today. Philip's going to carry you home. I've got volleyball duties tonight. Final home game for the Pirates on ESPN+. Brittany Hoyt and myself at 6 o'clock, so I'll be ducking out a little early. Doug Martin will be with us in a few minutes, but right now as we bring in the ref, you've got some audio goodness you'll get to today. That will include, I'm sure, Pirate basketball, perhaps some Blake Harrell comments. We will see how it all shakes out near the end of today's radio presentation. But, Pilk, you know, a lot of, I don't want to say complaining, but a lot of people last night were griping. I got sent a couple of comments from some people about the opponent. And look, it's not exactly what you want to see in 2 out of your first 3 home games, non-D1 opponents. But, you know, a win is a win, a program with a lot of new guys in it that are getting to know each other. You need to have those games to be able to work those kinks out. And so that's it. Everybody also, somebody was complaining to me about, well, you know, Wilmington plays Arkansas, Kentucky, who the hell ever. Well, yeah, they also get a check, and they just happen to have a good enough team to win last year. Most of the time, 9 times out of 10, they're going to go on the road and get the check and get their brains beat in. So,
Well, Patrick, I had a question. Who did Wilmington play on opening night?
Yeah, Mount Olive, the same team ECU played. So, I mean, do you want to go and play and do you want to go and play somebody like, I don't know, Kentucky, Arkansas, whoever, take the check, and then when they get beat by 20, you're going to still bitch? You know, I mean, I don't mean it to start here today because, I mean, I look, a win is a win. There were some impressive things. I mean, geez Louise, you had the top 10, the top play in Sports Center last night and this morning with the Jordan Riley dunk, which was phenomenal. Number 1 play last night. What a play that was. I was stunned silence because it was such it was Pippen-esque. It looked like something Scottie Pippen would have done in the 90s. I'm dating myself. But, I mean, I just, you know, I look at when you get into a situation like that, the same people are the same people that don't give anything, that complain about everything. And, you know, I'll just say this again. If we're going to be serious about basketball and we're going to take it to the level you think it needs to be, and I feel like it can get to, then you got to make your decision. You got to try to get success going and win as many games as you can in the pre-conference, let it play out in the conference, or do you go and take money games? Football did a money game last year at Michigan. That was nice, but, you know, one of 10 losses. It sets you off 0-1. So there you go. Let me see. What else do we have here, Pill? Oh, and here's the other thing. Look, you want a quality opponent? Show up Saturday then, wise guy or gal. Message board monkey. Show up Saturday. Come find me if you don't like what I'm saying, by the way. I'll be happy to discuss it with you. But show up Saturday and cheer like heck because East Carolina is going to have a tough go of it Saturday. George Mason, who plays against Central Michigan tonight, is going to be a formidable opponent. They got some good players on. And, you talk about, you could kind of get an idea how good a team is not going to be or whatever. And I haven't gotten into Mason yet, so I don't know where they were picked in the preseason. Google that for me, Pilk, and maybe let me know where Mason was picked in the preseason in the A-10. But if they're anything other than dead frickin' last, then, it's anybody's guess in a lot of these conferences because you don't know what anybody's bringing back. I'll say this, Pilk, and maybe you agree with this, maybe you don't. I think athletically this is an ECU team based on the way and the ferocity in which they finished dunks last night. 11 dunks in the game, by the way. That was fun. Athletically, this is a team that could match up with its conference opposition. That could match up with the George Mason. Athletically. Are there flaws? Sure. Everybody's got flaws this time of year. Duke's got the best player in the country, and some flaws came through last night, and they lost.
Yeah.
Where's Mason picked?
So
Bill?
Mason's projected to finish 6th. They're the highest projected team that did not receive at least one first-place vote. They are ahead of teams such as Rhode Island, St. Bonaventure, and Davidson, who have all been perennial tournament teams in the last decade.
Right. And so if you're in that running, in that spot in the A-10, odds are you got a shot to win that conference. Because that's what kind of conference is how deep that conference is. That's a multi-bid league. The American should be a multi-bid league. And I would say the two conferences favor each other and are very comparable. They compare to each other favorably is what I'm trying to say there. Anyway, let's get to the positives. It was good to see J. Shane Woodard get a double-double. We talked to him last night, Pilk, on television. Thought it was good to finally, get a different guy on there that I think is going to be key. Did we get any update, or have we gotten any update on LeBeau and what happened with him with his injury? I know he left the game. He was in an air cast. It obviously was an ankle. Anything from that, Pilk, that has come out here or that you might could update us on in the update?
I have not seen anything yet.
Okay. They might not know anything till tomorrow or the next day, or even before game time. This is not exactly the most forthcoming when it comes to these injuries, staff. Not a criticism, just a fact. And then, I think the other thing, Riley was obviously spectacular. R.J. Felton was 2 assists shy of a triple-double, Pilk. Think about that for a minute. And I had a really good basketball mind say to me last night, and Pilk, you know this person. R.J. Felton may not make it in the NBA, but R.J. Felton's going to make a lot of money playing professional basketball somewhere, likely overseas. That's how great of a – he might be the best athlete to have ever played ECU basketball. Again, I come back to that word, athlete, athleticism, that description. And then, obviously, Walker being able to take advantage of his athletic prowess and his, experience and physicality over Mount Olive was a big thing. Again, I get it's Mount Olive, but they play a fun style. And you know what? I was real impressed with that kid Dawson that we had on, Pilk. I don't know how much we could hear of that because we were there, and Freaknik apparently broke out with the music last night. But
that was actually like the last thing we were able to get that sounded
how impressive was that young man, though?
Well, first off, this is a young man who's a freshman. I'm guessing Mount Olive does not have a lot of media training, so let's just talk about how good he was
their
on
radio
air.
guys argued the last time we saw their clips go viral. They had 2 guys arguing about who could talk on the broadcast.
Yeah. And that
Then
young
Byram
man was
sent me
so
that
well-spoken, so respectful.
Oh, he was fabulous.
He was so appreciative. Yeah. And then to top it off, especially his start to the game was phenomenal.
Yeah.
And obviously, law of averages, he cooled off a little bit. But I just thought he was an all-around good player. He fit their style. his defense was there as well as the offense. And sometimes you play these smaller schools and they're trying to get the best offensive output. But that hustle we saw on the offensive side, we saw on the defensive side. He's a fast kid, doesn't waste a lot of movement. When he cuts or he moves defensively, he goes from point A to point B hard. I thought he was a real tough-nosed kid, and it was really good to have him on the show.
Could he play in Greenville? Yes. With the days of the portal.
Yeah. Yes.
And a little quick guard. Not the biggest guy on earth, but I mean, as far as a quick lefty guard that could shoot.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to tell you what to do, kid, but kid could get in the portal and probably get a look. He's a little better than D2, I think. No offense to anybody playing at that level, but I think he's a little better than D2. And to me, he was their most impressive guy. He and the other guard, who was really small from Greenfield, I thought was pretty impressive. He's just maybe too small to play at the D1 level. But the other kid, Dawson, could definitely play. But, yeah, look, a win's a win. And I'm going to say this till I turn
real
blue
quick,
in the
face.
face.
Other guy's still taller than Caleb LeCount, just saying. Well,
I'm taller than Caleb LeCount. I mean, it's not saying much.
But you didn't play at the D1 level.
That's true. That's true. I'll say this. Saturday is a big basketball game. And it would be great to have a big crowd on Saturday because that is a quality opponent coming in. That is an opponent that you and they are picked in the same range in your respective conferences. Again, those conferences are comparable in many ways. And that's a big game for the program, a big game for this team, and a big game for the American. And I think it'd be great to come out and spend some hours enjoying watching a really athletic team take on another athletic and really good basketball team. We've got Pirate football tomorrow, and we're going to talk some football with the one and only Doug Martin when he gets set to join us here in just a few minutes. Any other news and notes, Pilk, that we need to bring up? Duke lost last night, a couple of turnovers late by Cooper Flagg. And look, I think there's been a meltdown on speaking of message board monkeys, Duke message boards. But it's November, for crying out loud.
What I noticed in that game, I was talking to my dad about it after, they played really good for 36 minutes, and they made a lot of mistakes the last 4 minutes. That's okay. The thing is, they've got Arizona next Friday, and the following Tuesday they've got Kansas. They're going to be in that situation again. Now, if they make those same mistakes, you got a problem if you're John Shire.
Well, they make the same mistakes against Kansas, they'll get their doors blown out.
Yeah, true. But I'm talking about if it's tight. I'm talking about tight game, end-of-game mistakes. If you go out there and you make those same mistakes, we've got a problem. But they're not as young as past Duke teams, but a lot of the guys that were making mistakes were the young guys. One of them was only 17, can't even buy Tylenol yet. He's going to have his roommate go do it. And you know what? If they don't make those mistakes at Arizona or that neutral site game against Kansas and they clean those up, you're okay. You know what?
Yeah.
You lost to Kentucky. You lost the number 19 team in the country. Was I disappointed? Sure. But, it is what it is.
I really like
early season college basketball.
From the Duke perspective that John Shire is not afraid to go play people. I mean, they're going to Arizona. It's pretty good.
Yeah.
Pretty good. It's not a bad deal if you're. And look, last year they lost to Arizona and Cameron in November, and you know what they did, Pilk? Went to the Elite Eight, had a chance to go to the Final Four with a team that was kind of soft, if we're being honest. So, I think that's I credit to him playing who he's played here out of the gates. All right, let's hit a break. We'll come back. Thursday night football, part 2 for the Pirates as they will travel to Tulsa. We're going to hear from our great friend Doug Martin next. We'll talk about Caton Hauser's performance and where this Pirate offense is in his mind. We'll talk some college football with the coach, Doug Martin, next on the Patrick Johnson Show.
Download the new IBX Media app now and get the show for your ears and eyes.
Doesn't it look great on me?
This is the Patrick Johnson Show on 94.3 The Game.
Coach Doug Martin gloating about his Wildcats defeating Pilkington's Blue Devils last night. He joins us here on the Patrick Johnson Show. How about that? Big Blue, baby.
Huge win for the Big Blue Nation, but old school. New players, don't pay them a ton of money, go out and actually win a basketball game. That looked good. Got a bunch of guys that want to play.
They used to pay them there when you couldn't, right? So that's
well. I'll have no since one of my best friends was Sam Bowie when I was in school there, Patrick, and you remember that name back in the day.
Yes,
and so I'll refuse to comment on that. I'm going to refuse to comment on that, knowing Sam really well.
So, what kind of dude was Sam Bowie?
Awesome guy. Just really intelligent. Good guy to be around. And not all the basketball players and football players kind of mingled together in those days. I'm sure they probably still do. But, you have the racetracks there in Lexington, Keeneland, and Red Mile was a harness track. And so we'd all go out to harness track and, blow some money around and try to win some fixed races and all that good stuff. But those good days. Good days.
Had Sam Bowie stayed healthy, I think he would have panned out to be pretty darn good in the pros.
Oh, I think you would have, and still, it kind of gets a bad rap for being picked before Michael Jordan. That's a tough deal, but Sam still played for quite a while and had a good career. But you're right, he had some bad injuries at Kentucky actually too. It all started back there. So, but good person.
Well, that's cool. That's quite a story. We got Doug Martin with us here, Coach. The Pirates go on the road to play Tulsa. The thing that I've liked so far is, at least with Blake Harrell overseeing the program overall and John David Baker pulling a Doug Martin now and calling his plays from the field, is they've been very aggressive. They've not been scared to go out and impress the envelope, especially at the end of the half. I mean, I think we've seen two games where East Carolina typically may have, all right, we'll take a quasi shot at going downfield or running something that if it breaks and we get it down and can score, great. But now they've been aggressive and pressed the issue, especially at the end of the half, which I think's impressive.
Yeah, I think you got to give Blake Harrell a lot of credit because this is a tough situation to be in, to be an interim head coach and all the things you have to deal with being a head coach to begin with, but not alone being an interim head coach. And in today's world of NIL and transfer portals and are these kids going to stay or are they going to go? I mean, he's handled this so well, I think, from the outside. And I think he's got them playing with some enthusiasm. They're playing loose, as you mentioned. They look like they're playing with no agenda. And so, I think that part of it's been great. Offensively, I think at least they're not making as many mistakes as they made before, the turnovers and those type of things. Now, I would pump the brakes a little bit because they've played some bad football teams the last 2 weeks. And this week's not going to be much different. Me, you, and Pilt could score 21 on Tulsa. I'm going to promise you.
Yeah, and I guess the word there is Coach Wilson says he's going to relinquish the play calling duties, and everybody. It seems like every time there's a coaching opening at Duke, everybody says Steve Spurrier Jr. Steve Spurrier Jr. I guess Steve Spurrier Jr. is going to get to call some plays at Tulsa. That's the big rumor around the campfire. So I don't think they're going to deviate so much. They've had to play a couple different quarterbacks for various reasons. Offensively, what do you think Tulsa's going to present?
I mean, they've just struggled on both sides of the ball. I think up front is where I see them struggling mostly, Patrick. The offensive line, defensive line, and everything starts there, right? You've got to be able to protect the quarterback. You've got to be able to run the ball a little bit. And they just haven't been consistent really at doing either one. So, I think there's just obviously, early in the head coaching change there. So they've got a lot of time to build a program. And I know they have put together a lot of NIL money. I think they had $3.2 million in NIL money for Tulsa. So I would expect them to get that thing going here over the next year or so. But this is not their year. I mean, they're really struggling as a football team right now.
So back to the Pirates. Caden Hauser, the AAC Player of the Week, had the highest quarterback rating of any college football FBS quarterback this past week. What are you seeing out of Caden Hauser that has impressed you?
Well, again, he's not making mistakes. He's not beating himself. He's not throwing the ball in a crowd. He's not turning the ball over at the rate they were before. And they're creating explosion plays. You know, they're hitting some deep balls. They're making some yards after the catch, which wasn't there earlier in the year. So it's good to see receivers get the ball in their hand and create something afterwards. I think he's managing the game really well. I think you'll find out more about him as a player probably in the last two games, Patrick. You know, North Texas and Navy. He's going to get
Right.
challenged in those two games. Those are going to be two pretty good teams. You know, these three games, I mean, hey, give him credit, man. He's played well, and the offense has gone out and scored points, and they've won these games. And again, I can't give Coach Harold enough credit for what he's done. But they're not going to get tested until these last two games.
Pirates are running the ball with some effectiveness, and back-to-back games of over 200 yards. I don't think you can overstate or understate that, and how much important that is. I mean, you're right, not turning the football over helps, but if you can run the ball with even half the consistency production-wise than what you've done the last two times out, that bodes pretty well for this offense up here.
Yeah, and football complements each other, right? The run and pass kind of go together. And one thing I'd been critical of East Carolina all year was not having much of an intermediate passing game. And that's what I've seen the last 2 weeks. They've gone and created some intermediate throws. They're throwing the ball over the middle a little bit now that they hadn't before, getting yards after the catch. And when you can do that, it's going to open up things for your running game. So to me, you know, they've kind of changed their philosophy a little bit or gone a different direction in terms of getting some completions over the middle and getting the ball out of the quarterback's hands a little bit quicker so the offensive line doesn't have to protect all day. But, you know, again, I think those last two games when they get some teams that are going to pressure a little bit, play a little bit tougher, they're going to be put in some tough situations. That's when you'll find out a little bit more about them. But so far, these last couple of games, they've looked really good.
Yeah, absolutely. And the defense kind of showed a little bit of a return to form against Florida Atlantic. What'd you make? Of course, the quarterback got hurt. What'd you make of the Florida Atlantic team, Doug? I mean, Tom Herman's had success. You would think there's talent down there. You have seen him, I guess, a couple of times, but just based on what you have seen so far, and particularly Thursday, just nothing about them really stood out on paper as being overly, or watching them in person from the stadium seemed overly impressive to me.
Yeah, you know, Patrick, I think you're right. I think even if you ask him, Coach Herman, he would tell you they've been pretty much an underachieving football team this year. I mean, when you're in the state of Florida, you can walk 2 blocks and find really good football players to recruit. I mean, they're all over the place down there, and they've got a good-looking football team. Physically, that football team has some skilled guys that can run, but they're beating themselves, making a lot of mistakes. Defensively, they're giving up a lot of big plays. And, you know, they were coming into the East Carolina game, and then in the East Carolina game, that continued. And so there's no consistency there, you know. And I think now they're in the deal where, and I hate to say this about college football, but I think teams that are in the situation that Florida Atlantic is in, where they haven't, you know, come to fruition, their season hadn't been as what they thought it is. I think these kids start to get their eyes on, okay, where can I transfer to get more money? Where can I transfer to get more playing time? And it's hard to rebound from a bad start. As in the past, where you knew these guys were coming back, you knew they were going to be with you. They're going to fight to the end of the season because that's what you do. I don't know that you can get that now from college football players. I think there's too many of them looking ahead to what their own futures are.
Yeah, that's one of the drawbacks of this current system for sure, and that is can you persevere? Can people hang in there? And they may not necessarily do that because of whatever reason. We got Doug Martin with us here. We're going to hit a break. Pilk will give you an update, and then we'll come back and talk some more college football with ECU one-time offensive coordinator, college football head coach Doug Martin here on the Patrick Johnson Show.
Thank you, P-Man. Starting in Pirate Athletics, the basketball team made it 3-0 last night with a 110-73 victory over Mount Olive. First time the Pirates have scored in double digits since 2013. Part of the reason they did it, it was such a fast-paced game. Coach Schwartz said it was the fastest-paced game he had ever been a part of.
Like I told the guys, this game was going to be fast. We knew that going in, unlike any game we have played here at ECU, and I just told the team this. In my 27 years of coaching, I haven't played a team in any level I've been at that plays with that pace. That's a very unique style. That's 1980s Loyola Marymount.
The basketball team will be back in action on Saturday when they host George Mason at 4 o'clock. The network coverage will start right here on 94.3 The Game at our sister station, 107.9 at 3:30. The volleyball team will be in action tonight as their final home game of the season. They take on arch rival Charlotte. That game starts at 6. Be sure to come out to Williams Arena, Minges Coliseum, where admission is free to volleyball all season long. Last night, the NBA in-season tournament began. The Hornets did not get off to a good start as they fell big to the Magic. The Canes will be making their inaugural trip to Utah tonight as they take on the Utah Hockey Club. They're trying to build off a win they had last time out against Vegas. The Canes have won 9 of their last 10. That'll do it for our sports update and Pirate Report here on the Patrick Johnson Show. We're going to take a timeout. We'll be back with more with former Pirate OC Doug Martin on the other side of this timeout.
We have you covered with all the ECU news and beyond that you need for the drive home. The Patrick Johnson Show on 94.3 The Game.
All right, Doug Martin with us here on the PJ Show on this Wednesday. Don't forget tomorrow, Anson Belton Buckle Pirate Game Day Countdown comes your way at 3 o'clock. It'll be Philip and myself. It's presented by Orthopedics East as well, and we'll be getting you ready for ECU at Tulsa. We'll hear from Parker Moore, ECU offensive lineman, one-on-one with him. We'll also check in with Stephen Igo, who will be out in Tulsa, plus a lot more. That is coming your way right here on 94.3 The Game tomorrow. That is Pirate Game Day Countdown with the special time of 3 o'clock. And then we'll be back here on Friday with our normal Friday Patrick Johnson Show at 5. Looking forward to that. All right, Doug Martin with us here. Coach, South Carolina is playing, and they got Missouri this weekend. It's a top 25 matchup. The thing that's impressed me about that is you had Beamer on. I don't know how hot the seat was. I guess maybe it was, but you look what Shane Beamer's done in this season, and he's been fantastic. And all of a sudden, their matchup in a couple weeks against Clemson looks really, really spicy.
That could be. They're finally playing some complimentary football. They were struggling so bad on offense early in the year, just couldn't score points. And, in today's game, we've talked about before, Patrick, you have to be able to score. I mean, you're not going to win low-scoring games consistently, especially in the SEC when there's so many talented players. So their ability to get the ship righted on offense and control the ball a little bit and play complimentary football and create some explosion plays has paid off for them huge. And right now, you'd have to say they're probably playing some of the best football in the SEC.
Boise State looks like they've got a pretty clear path ahead of them over the next 3 weeks. And Ashton Genty has been marvelous. So what do you think of Boise, Coach?
Well-coached team. And again, even though their strength of schedule has been good because the only loss they have was to Oregon, right, who's the number one team in the country.
Close.
And they played them pretty tough.
It was a point.
Yeah. I mean, they played them well. I've seen them a couple of times, and a couple of times they've dominated what you would like to see them do in the Mountain West. And a couple of games that they haven't quite been as sharp, but the running back is, a Heisman candidate for a reason. He's an electric player. And Boise has always had tradition. I mean, even when people don't remember, they started off as a junior college and then Division II and then FCS, and they were winning national championships at every one of those levels. And it's just continued on. I think it'll be interesting to see if they end up being in a power conference soon. I mean, I'm really surprised that someone like the ACC or when they were expanding didn't reach out to them or another conference. But and they've got the facilities, they've got the tradition, they've got the money to back football. It's important to them. I think you'll see that whole program make a move here before long.
And everybody thinks, Boise State, it's in Idaho. Boise's a pretty good-sized town, pretty good-sized city, actually. So
beautiful place. They've had a bowl game there and everything, right? So, I mean, it's a great place, and it's a football crazy area, too.
It's one of those weeks. It's kind of an interesting slate when you look towards the weekend. I want to ask you a little bit about Wake Forest at North Carolina and where those teams are going coming into this week. You have a tie to Wake Forest, and Pilk and I hate the Tar Heels. Full disclosure. So there you go. That's the.
I'm with you guys on that one now.
We all three hate the Tar Heels. There you go. All right.
Yeah. I got enough pirate left in me to still hate all the in-state schools here.
All right. So Wake at Carolina. What you seeing on that one?
Yeah, I think that's a very winnable game for Wake Forest. And Carolina, you really don't know what you're going to get from week to week. And they've kind of, stabilized a little bit. They're playing a little bit better, but they've really underachieved. I mean, it's an underachieving program this whole year. So I think Wake will have a good shot at them. Very disappointing loss to Wake Forest last week, I can tell you that, because they beat themselves. They gave up a touchdown on a kickoff return that they fumbled. They fumbled a punt return. Those are things that Dave Clawson coached teams don't normally do. They don't beat themselves. And I know that was really disappointing to Wake. Carolina's got talent. They've got, probably more talent than Wake Forest does. I'm not sure they're a better team than Wake Forest is, depending on how Wake can rebound from last week. But if Wake can find a way to win their last two, which is Carolina and Duke, they're bowl eligible. So they're still playing for a lot right now. Now, those are going to be two tough tasks. Duke is playing exceptional football, and Carolina's Carolina. So it'll be interesting to see how it ends up.
I'm really we all kind of had a good laugh about Colorado earlier in the year because they barely survived North Dakota State. They lost at Nebraska. It was close with Colorado State. Then they would end up losing to Kansas State. But they've reeled off 3 in a row. Why is Colorado playing so well right now, in your opinion?
I think the biggest reason is the quarterback. He's an NFL prospect, Sanders, and then they're protecting him better. He took a beating last year, Patrick. I mean, what happened to him last year? The offensive line was so bad, and they went out and they bought an offensive line. I mean, they literally went out and bought one to get somebody in front of him and help protect him a little bit better. And he's a great player. And then you have Hunter playing wide receiver and DB. So, I mean, that's a talent-rich program right now. And obviously they've used the transfer portal and NIL to attract all those players. And again, their schedule has not been brutal. I mean, to be honest about it, the teams they're beating and who they're playing. So I think it'll be – and look, their schedule here from on out, I think it's Utah, Kansas, and one other team that really they should be favored in all 3 of those games. I can't remember who the last one was, but I know it's Utah, Kansas, Oklahoma State. That's the third one.
Oklahoma State, yeah.
All three of those teams before the season, you said had a chance to be pretty good, but all of them have had disastrous seasons. So things have kind of just fallen in place for Colorado to have a good year.
Let me ask you one other college thing. I just wanted to get a general pro comment from you. But the Fighting Doug Martins, the Kent State Flashes, Miami of Ohio, tonight on some action. Who you got, Coach? Who you got?
Well, I got Miami because Kent State hasn't won a game this year. So they're starting to make me feel pretty good about the job I did there. At least
they haven't led in a game this season.
Oh, my gosh.
Bill said they haven't led in a game this year.
I think they've won one game in 2 years. I think somebody was telling me that.
All right.
So
the phone rings. They say, Coach Martin, come back. Come back to Kent State. Resurrect this thing for us. Are you hanging up?
Yeah, Coach Martin is. Yeah, Coach Martin is not available at this time. We'll get back to you. Oh, Patrick, I've had my days of doing that, man. Every game you coach at one of those places, it's like you're going to a gunfight carrying a pocket knife, and I've had enough of those days.
So the Bears blow out their offensive coordinator. You got a couple situations in Jacksonville and Dallas where the quarterbacks have gone down and the head coaches. I mean, it's kind of a lost season. I mean, it's just interesting to me when they make these decisions that are being made in the NFL. And I mean, you've got a little taste of pro football in your background there. I don't know. I just, you've got a relatively new quarterback situation in Chicago, and then you just blow out the offensive coordinator. And I'm not going to pretend I'm Pilk and follow the ins and outs of the Chicago Bears each week, but I don't know. That just seems a little strange to me.
Well, there's a couple of things, differences with professional football and college football is, in college football, obviously it's your board of trustees and your athletic director and president and all that. In the NFL, you have a team owner, okay? And that guy's paying all the bills. So if he comes to you and he says, "Hey, I want this offense coordinator out," well, he's out. I mean, it's not in the control of that head coach. And he can tell the head coach, "Hey, it's either him or you," and he's done. And don't underestimate the power that these quarterbacks have, like a Caleb Williams. And I'm not saying that he did this. I don't know anything about it. But when you're the number one draft pick and you're making those billions of dollars and you're not happy with your coordinator and you go to the head coach and say, "Hey, I need a new guy," it's going to happen. Players have a lot of stroke in that league. And so, sometimes it's a head coach trying to save his own skin. Sometimes it's a quarterback that's just not happy what he has. Sometimes it's an owner that wants to see change. And so there's a lot of things in that league that, the head coach does not control and just has to deal with.
You kind of just as a head coach, you just have to really, I mean, you're kind of over the staff, and that's really about it, isn't it? I mean, you're not making, unless you're ingrained to the point where you've got that part of your deal, you're, as Parcells famously kind of referred to, shopping for the groceries. I mean, you're just expected to make the meal.
Right. You've got to try to build any football team, whether it's high school, college, or the NFL. I don't care. You've still got to try to build a culture. There's got to be a culture of competitiveness, of some type of team play. Just like Kansas City has. Andy Reid, he has a plan. He has a culture that's built there, and the players fall in line for that culture because they know they're going to win. And if they win, they get more money. So it all leads to something else, right? The teams that struggle are the teams that just don't have that culture. It's not going the right way. And so players want to be paid. And when they're losing games, they get frustrated because this is their livelihood at that level.
Right.
And, they see dollars. They don't see losses. They see dollar signs. And, you've got to keep them motivated to play.
Lied to you about the pro thing. Did you get to watch any of the Panthers and Giants on Sunday, or did you spare yourself that early morning?
I did. I watched about a half.
Okay.
Yeah, I watched about a half of that.
All right, Bryce Young. Why have the Panthers won 2 in a row with him at the quarterback? Does the blind squirrel find the nut?
Well, I think one thing, it might have taken a little pressure off of him when they benched him for a while, Patrick. I think he kind of got to exhale and regroup and kind of see things from a different angle. I think he's been a little bit better. He's been a little bit more calm since he came back. It's not like he has all the pressure of the world on him anymore. So I think there's a little bit of pressure off of him. And I think they're trying to do things to help him too. I've said this all along. I don't care what the quarterback is. The system has to fit the quarterback, not the other way around. You've got to make your system built for the quarterback to succeed. And too many people try to take a quarterback and make him fit your system, and that just doesn't work. It's completely the other way. And I think Carolina's done a good job the last couple of weeks of maybe running the ball, play actions, get the ball out of his hand, do some things that are just going to help him a little bit more.
Coach, thanks for being with us. We really appreciate it. We'll talk to you next time around. Thanks a lot.
I enjoyed it, guys. You guys have a good one.
All right, awesome stuff to have Doug Martin on. I'm going to head out to Minji's for ECU volleyball on ESPN Plus tonight. It's at the top of the hour, and right now here is a timeout, and when we come back, Pilk will get you to the finish line.